It's been a while. Although to you it may feel more, well, brief. Depends on how much you remember over the last few months. We're no longer where we used to be. Maybe you've noticed, maybe you've felt the temperature of the room isn't so perfect anymore. Well, we've checked in somewhere new, somewhere a bit more public than I would like, but I had to take a full measure. You see, it turns out that certain people in the, well, tight-knit community that I oh so secretly dwell in reported me for certain movements they weren't supposed to notice. So, we've travelled very far indeed. Of course, you were out the whole time. I can't have you hitting on the trunk of a car or screaming out for help. But why would you do that? From the impression you give me, it seems that you'd rather sit in the front seat and stay quiet. But I can't let you do that. That would be insanity. You'd be more of a partner than a prisoner if I was to do something such as that. Although maybe the journey would be a bit more interesting. That said, the radio's good enough for me. Music's a very fond companion of mine. More fond a companion than you, I'm afraid. Although I can't bear to listen to it for longer than half an hour at a time. You see, I start to notice patterns, see where it's going next, even if it's a song I've never heard before. Every genre has its set of, well, its own set of expectations, its own tropes, things that you learn very slowly but very surely. Eventually you can write your own. In fact, I have. I burnt the papers I wrote them on, the lyrics, the notes. I burnt them afterwards. Of course, I'm not going to keep any form of record of my somewhat emotional aspects, because music is a very emotional thing. I'm sure you like music. I'm yet to meet a person that doesn't. Although I have heard that around 2% of people are unable to enjoy music like us. Enjoyment being a very lacking word for what I really wish to describe there. It's less of enjoyment, more of a subjection to culture. I need to place myself into reality at times, I'm sure you already know. I can't just wander about in my own world. It would be too obvious. Although clearly I haven't been doing enough of this subjecting. You know, I think it was the one across the road. Not the one nearby, but across the road and down the hill. That guy, he's always asked too many questions. Oh, how's your day going? Well, it's none of your business how my day... It just leaves me speechless. Who would ask me such a question? How's your day going? How's your day going? How is it? You don't know me. The point is, I don't have time for this. Such a nonsense. It's just small talk. It's not really there. He may as well be a computer asking me It's pointless. I don't even want to describe it anymore, to tell you the truth. But here I am doing such a thing. Moving on. It may have been him, or it may have been the nice lady, little Joanne over at the corner shop. She always liked me, always seemed to treat me a little bit differently. I think she could tell I struggled a bit. But maybe, just maybe, she didn't really care. Maybe it was more of a act. You see, everyone's putting on an act, whether you like it or not, whether they like it or not. It's not really up to them. I mean, everyone has to get along, don't they? They have to get along or get out of town. And unfortunately, well, the latter's happened to us. We've gotten out of town. We won't be staying here. This is temporary. I allowed you to come too, simply to check in on you. Sorry about that, I can't help myself. Sometimes these puns are just too easy to reach out and grasp. Regardless, how are you doing? You look well. You look well fed. I hope your guardian has been looking after you. Oh, smile. Smile with me. You may as well, we're in this together. Don't shake your head. You know just as well as I do that this is a two-person thing. It's not just me talking to a microphone. You and I are actually here, in a real situation. You look at me like I'm crazy. Don't look at me. Look, you're here for the same reason I am. However, that's whatever you want it to be, whether you want to be trapped or not. I can tell. I watched you, remember? I know your habits. I have my predator kind of elements, and you have your captive sort of elements to you. Anyway, it's a bit weird talking about our situation, isn't it? Rather strange. But nonetheless, you are here, I am here, and we're in this rather dark, miserable hotel room. Twin bed, although don't expect to pick yours, I've already picked mine, the one by the window. Simply because the further away from the window I am, well, let's just say I like a breeze rolling in. I get to choose the bed simply because I'm paying for the room. Although, it's not like you have much of a choice, really. Do you want to chip in? It wasn't cheap, you know. I'm not going to some run-down place. I may not find this place adequate, but it's certainly better than just some random some low-end thing somewhere. This is 3 stars, it's reasonable, the food's okay. I brought you some back. There it is in the corner. You can try it later if you want. Try it now if you want. It's up to you, really. Although you may struggle picking it up with your hands, zip-tied like that. And no, they're not coming off. Sorry. You'll have to just dig in head first. Something like that. It's up to you. I don't know how you've been doing it all this time, to be quite honest with you. I leave a meal there, and then it's gone. Although, it's no longer going to be in the same place, I'm afraid. The dimensions of the room are different. I typically place it in an area that makes the room feel balanced. As you know, feng shui. We have to keep that going, don't we now? Just quickly touching upon that. Haven't they made an awful design choice of the colour of that wall? I'm not a fan of the colour blue. It's a bit too bright for me. A bit too blue, to be quite honest. I'm not a fan of blue eyes, although blue eyes with that sort of, I don't know, darker centre. I kind of find that appealing. Represents more of a hidden darkness. Quite a fan of that. It's not what it quite seems at first. It's a blue eye, yes, but it's got 2 tones. Light around the edge, dark in the middle, and I'm not talking about the pupil, so don't think you're clever. Yeah, eyes are interesting. You know, no two eyes are the same. At least, not from anything I've heard about. It can be used to identify you. That's why I'm careful never to look into the lens of a camera, especially those high-quality ones. If I ever see anyone with a proper SLR camera, especially one with a very large, what do they call it? Aperture? I'm not sure. The aperture's a thing on the inside. You know what I mean, though? Those big things they attach to the front. If I ever see anyone, like the paparazzi with one of those, oh, I'm certain to look away. Any detail on me that can pinpoint who I am is a threat. You do well to remember that. Never look into the eyes of a camera. And they are eyes. There is someone looking back at you. They may not be looking at you directly, but they will be looking at you the moment they look at that image. But I digress onto unusual categories, as we all do. How are you feeling? You warm? No? Yes? It's raining outside, at least you're nice and dry in here. It's always good, isn't it? You know, I may be quite the complex individual with my own issues, but I do think it's a shame how the government can't put everyone in housing. It's not very hard to build a simple hut or shack now, is it? It's actually quite cost effective, especially with all the land around. And land's only expensive because it's allowed to be expensive. The government in theory could, you know, buy the land at a lower cost, but then again that'd be more authoritarian. This is why I avoid politics. It's very complicated. You can never satisfy everyone, and if everyone was satisfied, then everyone would be too similar, wouldn't they? And then everyone would complain that everyone wants the same things as them, and then we'd have a shortage of resources. It's very complicated. We just have to try and find the right path. But anyway, as I say, I try to avoid politics. Anyway, the future. You may be wondering, where are we headed next? Well, of course, I'm not going to give you any details, although I can guarantee it's somewhere very secure, very safe, and somewhere very disconnected from the world. As long as I have you and you have me, I see no reason for any other human contact, don't you agree? No? Yes? Maybe? I can't tell sometimes. You look at me and I can't tell what's going through your mind still. Complex individual you are. Hard to break. Hard to crack, you're still here. I believe we've spoken around 11 times now, including this one. Maybe 10. Sometimes you talk in your sleep. I hear you calling out unusual things. I believe they're relating to me. There was one particular time you seemed rather distressed. However, you're okay now. You're protected, you're safe. How about we put on the TV? See what's on. Do you have a favourite channel? I mean, there's some new series out lately. Not that you'd know. I don't avoid television much actually, surprisingly, considering I'm not really into this. You know, I actually tend to find it interesting to stumble acron. Apologies for the mistake. Still working on my slight train of thought alterations, the slight diversions, like this one. It sometimes leads me to say words I don't mean to say. But anyway, where was I? Television, before my ridiculous slip-up. I find it interesting to see how the world is perceiving itself through media, through drama. Maybe you do, I don't know. It seems everyone likes to watch these new series, though, on streaming services. They're quite curious, although I can't bring myself to pay for a subscription. I stick with whatever I can just see, whatever I can consume at any point. There's plenty of ways to watch things perfectly legally. Not that the law and I agree on every subject, but, you can always find a way. And that is one of the things I live by. Always finding a way. Who am I kidding? You don't have any interest in this. Although maybe you do now. It has been quite some time. Potentially, any word I say to you is the most intriguing thing you've heard for as long as you can remember. I suppose, when I'm the only person you talk to, the value of what I say increases. Like that pause then. Did you feel that? I felt that. Quite dramatic, wasn't it? Every word starts to count. I'm sorry, I'm playing with my food. Not that I'm going to eat you, just to be clear. I'm not a cannibal, and I never will be, so don't worry about that. It's rather unnecessary. Animals attack and fight for defense or for food. I don't need to attack anyone for food. We're living in a very developed society. Food's readily available, especially if you have the coin. Maybe it's time for us to sit back. Well, I'll sit back. You can just remain tied there to the bed. Don't be weird about it. I'm pretty sure you're comfortable. I have studied a lot of things to do with human anatomy, and I do know what is the most comfortable position for a human being. There you go again, looking at me with those unusual eyes. I think we should sit back and watch some television, don't you? That may be the most normal thing you and I have ever done together. Now, yes, I think it's time for silence. Shall we see what's on?